My name is Kiran Marisandege. I'm a lawyer and a marketer. And at Vellum, we keep a pulse on the regulatory and policy landscape in Kenya and the region at large, where we want to be able to just ensure that we have conversations around policy, around regulatory reforms that affect Kenyans and the communities at large. And for today's podcast, we are going to be discussing around the sales profession, demystifying the sales profession, potential regulation around the sales profession, and creating a framework to be able to guide and nurture the future of one of the greatest force of workers in the country that has propelled a lot of companies to growth. So thank you and welcome.
Hi, my name is Alice Mwalimo. I like saying that I used to sell drugs and now I sell lifestyle. Previously, I was working at GSK, now known as Helion, and I currently work at Nivea, hence the drugs and the lifestyle. I have 15 years experience in both marketing and sales. Largely, I would say 80% of that time has been in sales. So, good understanding of what drives sales in this African region. I currently handle about 28 countries within Africa. And, it would be amazing and very interesting to understand that sales is actually very similar yet very different in these countries. And I hope we'll demystify that today. Thank you.
Fantastic. My name is Kelvin Kuria. I am currently the CEO and founder of Commercial Club of Africa. We are the member body for salespeople. We are Think Marketing Society of Kenya, but for sales, or Law Society of Kenya, but for sales. And before that, I was a commercial director for African Originals. I worked there for 2 years. Before that, I worked for Unilever for 10 years. Again, selling lifestyle. But in Unilever, we called it soap and soup. Because we are obviously a very laundry heavy business, and worked in multiple roles, but in multiple countries as well. Australia, Rwanda, Kenya, looked after East Africa at some point, 7 countries, but all of them very, again, just like Alice, 80% of it was sales driven roles. And I came to the realization that obviously there is a lot of opportunity in sales. It's a very lucrative job if you do it well, very lucrative career, but it's also completely underrepresented. Which is why we set up Commercial Club of Africa to do the work of representing salespeople and propping up the profession. We call it raising the ceiling or the floor to make sure that salespeople are seeing in better light, that they are better supported, they are better structured. So looking forward to talking about what that means and how we can really just take the sales profession forward.
All right. So I think looking at the sales profession, there's has always been this conversation, this nuance that, sales is in the blood. You either have a knack for it or you don't. Can you just take us through what is the sales profession in Kenya, just the strategy behind sales, and kind of think of it like I have no idea what it is in the profession, because I think what we want to drive a conversation around what really is a sales profession beyond what people term it to be something that anybody can do, everybody can do sales. You just have to have the knack for it.
That's a good question, and as a matter of fact, those are very many questions. But I guess the starting point of it has to be what is, if you're to just completely dumb it down and speak to my 78-year-old grandmother and tell her what is sales, what would my response be? I think for me the response is as long as you're trying to provide value and just provide value from yourself to someone else, you are in the process of sales, right? So a lot of people think that sales is, I have a phone, please here it is, buy it, or I have a piece of bread or sugar or whatever it is, right? But as I think sales is a transfer of value from one person to the other. And because I am providing you with a product or with a service that so I'm giving you value, but you're also giving me value back, because then you're paying for the product, right? So it's an exchange of value, in my view, right? And if you think about it that way, then in that case, then your second question about what is a profession of sales in Kenya. So first of all, it's important to understand that everybody's in sales, and I know we have obviously we have spoken about that for a long time, right? But there are people whose primary responsibility is to provide the value on behalf of the organizations, right? So if you think about a company, you'll have lawyers and doctors and HR people, etc. Then you have a specific department in that organization called the sales department. Those are the guys who are responsible for taking the products or the services that the company does and exchanging that in exchange for value on behalf of the company, of course, at some sort of scale. I know that sounds extremely academic, right? But effectively, we are now in the process of finding out what is the easiest and the best way and the most proficient way of that exchange of value happening in a structured environment, right? In a place where the person who is doing this value exchange is well trained, is well supported, they have a good network, they are paid well, and that they live in an environment where they're able to do that conducively.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think just to add on to what Kevin is saying, there, when you look at your what, your why, your when, salespeople are really in charge of almost all of them. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who will sell the what has been made. They'll have to tell the next party what has been made. And then the how it will be sold. They're the ones who determine how will it be sold. Will it sit in the supermarket? Will it be sold on an e-com platform? Will it be sold face-to-face? And then again, they're also in charge of the why. Why am I buying that product? Am I buying it because it's affording me a lifestyle?
Yeah.
Am I buying it because it's adding X value to my life? So when you look at it, the salesperson is a very fundamental person in that funnel because he's almost touching all touch points of the why, what, how. And when you think about the salesperson, because, we've moved a lot from the days when I remember when you initially used to go for an interview, you'd be told, sell to me this pen, right? That would probably be
the big interview question.
Yes, that would be the big interview question,
Yeah.
sell to me this pen. We've really moved away from that. And the salesperson is actually the link between the organization and the consumer taking the decision whether to buy that product. Very important. So I could have the best of products. I could have the best of brands. But if I have the worst salesperson or I have a person who doesn't connect with the consumer, then this product will remain unsold, however good it is. Look at it on the other side. Again, I could have a mediocre product, not a very good product. But if I have a very good salesperson, product will land in the hand of the consumer. Yeah. So the role that this salesperson is doing has evolved tenfold from the days of sell me this pen.
Sell me this pen.
Yes.
What do you think of the term sales is a last resort job for people?
I was hoping you'd ask the question, and then I was also hoping you don't ask the question. So listen. So 2 steps back. When you finish campus in Kenya today, right? And it's been like that for a long time, right? When you're in that space where you're looking for something to do, a lot of people take sales jobs as the thing you do while you're looking
as you figure yourself out.
As you figure yourself out, right? So you're either in a store merchandising or doing, you're a promoter, promoting Nivea in a store. And there is nothing wrong with that, right? What is wrong with, what I have an issue with is a short-termism of thinking of sales as a short-term thing that I do while I wait for this big plum marketing or lawyer job or sale or HR etc. Right? No one ever when you speak to young kids and you ask them what do you want to be when you grow up, they don't say you're here. I want to be a pilot. I want to be a doctor. Did you ever hear somebody say I want to be a salesperson? I want to be a salesperson when I grow up. Right? And so there is that. But the question we have to ask ourselves is why? How did you end up here, right? And I think we ended up here because we, for example, and we're going to talk about training shortly, but you don't have an actual training program or training plan for salespeople. So sales and marketing has been lumped together for the longest time. They're very different things, and we're going to talk about the difference between sales and marketing shortly. But I think the reason how we ended up where, the reason why young children want to become lawyers is because there's a whole path to becoming a lawyer. Doctors, there's a whole path to becoming a doctor, right? But there isn't a path to becoming a salesperson, right? And therefore, obviously, then naturally, sales will be seen as a short-term thing because we haven't created the structure and the infrastructure to make it a long-term thing. So training is important. And 2 is also organizations for the longest time have always thought about salespeople as the guys who go out and make sales. But we are now just beginning to get into a space where now organizations are thinking about commercial functions as integral to what Alice was talking about, where, what, why as integral functions in the organization. And so I do think there is a mindset shift that we need. And that mindset shift is really what we're now pushing as Commercial Club of Africa.
Yeah. I think very interesting because I look at myself as an example. I started off in marketing. I was working in Ogilvy. I was in an agency. So my path, or the path that was expected for my career, was then I would end up as a brand person and then probably into marketing director was a likely path for me. But then I opted to go into sales. And when I look at why I did this and what it has benefited my career, is that one, as a salesperson, you tend to understand the business end to end, because at the end of the day, you have to sell the product. So you'll have to understand, how was this product produced? What salient features does this product have that makes it a better product over another? What is the pricing of this product and why is it priced that way? What is competition doing? And then finally, where should I place the product? And then finally, how is the buyer thinking about this product? So you're actually thinking of the product from its inception till the point it is used by the consumer. And even after the consumer has used it, did they love it? Did they hate it? Do they want it improved? And for me, that was very enriching because it means then I have to understand production, I have to understand PR, I have to understand marketing, I have to understand sales, I have to understand after sales. And this is a very big value add that the salesperson is having. So I think sometimes we end up thinking about sales, that part of selling. I took the product from the company and I gave it to the customer. But you actually have to understand the whole gamut of this path of the product. So it's a very important thing. Kevin says something very important. When we finish college and young people finish their schooling, they always tend to think, I'll do another career, but then I'll step into sales slightly as I wait for something else. But look at, for example, an engineer. An engineer could actually end up being in sales, selling products related to engineering, right? Look at a lawyer. A lawyer, at the end of the day, if he or she opens a firm, they will have to sell their services.
Yeah.
So they have to understand sales. Similarly to a doctor. And it's very interesting when Kenya's sales of schools started, and let me talk mostly about CCA. When CCA started, the interest and the people who actually came on board were people in other careers and not necessarily salespeople. We got a lot of interest from engineers. We got a lot of interest from doctors because everyone understands that whatever I create needs to be sold. I need to understand the component of sales. So is it a stopgap thing that you do for 2-3 months? I think that has changed and evolved a lot. If you look at the time that organizations are taking to train their salespeople, and why Kenya Schools of Sales, of course, is going to be a phenomenal concept, is because everyone now understands that sales is probably, everything. If at all you want your product or your brand to be important to consumers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just building on that, could you tell us what was the concept behind the Kenya School of Sales?
I thought you'd never ask. I really thought you'd never ask.
That's his pet topic.
Pet project.
You need
baby.
45 minutes.
How much time do you have? So Kenya School of Sales, listen, let me take 3 steps back. The first, and I alluded to it earlier, which is the biggest opportunity, let me not call it a challenge, the biggest opportunity is there hasn't been organized sales structured training program, right? Organizations are doing their own sales training programs because they get people who are doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc., who get into their sales department and they need to sell, right? And when you understand the product, you also, sales there's a science to sales, right? Let me take myself as an example, right? So I studied, just like Alice, I studied marketing. So I did a Bachelor of Commerce, went to Kenyatta University. I looked for the sales option. When you finish BCom and you're in the second year and you want to major in there is banking, finance, actuarial science, marketing. I looked for the sales option. I didn't find it. So the closest I could find was marketing, and therefore I ended up doing marketing, right? And I did the first 2 years of my life were in marketing. And then I realized I would rather really be out there pushing product and just talking to consumers. And so I moved to sales and spent 10 years of my life selling. But I have therefore gotten into sales because I did the job, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think there is a lot of value in learning sales by doing it, because I think that's the best way to do it. But imagine if I had spent 4 years of my life in campus learning sales, right? I would have leapfrogged my career because I then wouldn't have spent 2-3 years in Unilever learning the basics of sales, right? Learning stuff like route to market, territory management, negotiation, customer segmentation, all of that stuff I had to learn on the job. Imagine if I had gone to a school that would have taught me all of that before I got into the job market. Effectively meaning that my 12 years of sales career now, or my 10 years of sales career now, would effectively be 14 years, right? Because then I had 4 years of campus where I was quote unquote learning things that I did not really need, things that are not fully aligned to my vision and purpose and, career aspirations, right? So, and what are we doing about that? So what we've decided to do about that, first, the long-term ambition is to have an Africa Sales University. And I think I have to put it out there, right? Someone has to say it. Someone has to sort of dream it and think through it. And I dream of a day where, how people get, you go in and do a PhD in organizational behavior, or a PhD in marketing, or a PhD in engineering, right? And you become a Dr. Alice of whatever field, right? I want to get to a point where we have Dr. Kiran, who is a PhD in sales, right? Because you did a diploma in sales, you did a degree in sales, you did a postgraduate degree, a master's in sales, and you did a PhD in sales. That's really is where we need to get our people to. Because if we do that, imagine the amount of discipline and thought and depth we will add to the profession. Therefore, then the economy starts to do better, because you have people that are really well taught and trained, selling product or working in sales organizations. So we grow better as an organization, even as a country as well. So that's a vision. But because we know we obviously have to get there through a journey, so we started Kenya School of Sales. And what Kenya School of Sales is, the vision of Kenya School of Sales is to create bold African commercial superstars. And our role is to create a platform that allows salespeople to come in and go through structured selling training, right? And why is that important? Because then effectively we take the guesswork out of it. This whole story of saying that, sales iko kwa damu, sales in the blood, right? This whole story of saying that, sales is it born or is it trained, right? And a lot of people say you're born with it. No, you're not. You have to train to be a salesperson, right? Fine, you need to have the charisma and the ability to talk to people, etc. But even that we can teach you, to be honest, right? But behind that, negotiation, for example, is a whole science, right? Customer segmentation is a whole science. B2B sales management, e-commerce, all of those things are sciences that you need to go in and apply a framework to. Those frameworks are what we intend to teach. And so just to give you how we are organized quickly, so we have 6 levels of it. So level 1 to level 6, because we realize that salespeople will come in at different levels, right? So if you have 0 years of experience, you're a doctor that wants to learn how to sell. That's fine. Come. You start at level 1, right? So we'll give you the basics, etc. And then if you feel like you're now starting to get excited and learn into it, then you go into level 2, where you have 0 to 5 years experience. Level 3, is your manager. You're a manager of salespeople. Level 4, you're a manager of managers, so you're probably a director, like Alice here. And therefore, at that level, we are then not teaching you how to sell. We're teaching you how to structure your sales organization, how to think about multiple countries, how to think about multiple teams. Level 5 is a train-the-trainer model. So we're now training you how to train, because we realize that there's a lot of people that can do sales, but there's not enough people that can train sales. And the last thing we want to do is we do not want academics and lecturers to come and teach Kenya School of Sales. We want Alice here, who's a qualified practitioner, has worked in sales for 15 years. That sales experience is what we're looking at to come and share with students in Kenya School of Sales. And then level 6 is an executive coaching level, which is you become CEO, but you want to learn something specific to sales management or mergers and acquisitions. Then we come in and help. So it's a very tailored executive coaching for salespeople approach, right? So that's where we are now. It's a level 1 to level 6. And our first class is on 24th of May, so it's 3-4 days ago. Today's Wednesday, right? Thursday, Friday. So yeah, in 2 days. I don't know when this podcast will air. So
I think when Kevin first told me about this Kenya School of Sales, for me it was like an aha moment. Because many times salespeople will come in for an interview and all they probably have is, yes, I'm holding my degree paper I did this course in university. I did marketing in Daystar, very good. But everything else is verbal. Do you have route to market experience? I've done it. How do I prove you've trained on it? I cannot explain it to you. I probably have the 1 or 2 years experience that I actually did it. So certification is a very important thing, because then I'll be able to say, I want to be an area sales manager in this organization because Kenya School of Sales confirms I've done X, Y, Z capability training over and above my experience that makes me ready for this job. So I think for me, certification is very important. And then the second thing is, look at Africa today. Everybody else is coming from everywhere else and setting base in Africa. It's, the frontier of tomorrow. Now, creating these commercial superstars who understand Africa, who are learning sales from African, sales directors, sales people, sales gurus, and using African examples,
African case studies,
case studies, Safaricom, Equity, whoever. This will add a lot of value to the salespeople in not only in our country, but also in Africa. So I'm really quite excited about this and happy to be part of the program and part of the trainers, because I really think we have an opportunity to revolutionize how sales is actually viewed and certification within this country. I think the only part that maybe Kelvin didn't mention is also within CCA is a mentoring and coaching program.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe I should let you talk about
no,
it.
go ahead.
But
you probably do a better job than me.
So we are actually looking at how do we mentor the people who are coming into the career or are interested in sales career? How do we hold their hands? How do we pass the baton on? So I shouldn't be seated somewhere having 15 years of experience. I'm just talking about it probably in a podcast or in my office, but I'm not passing on the baton to the younger people. So we've actually set up a mentoring and coaching program, and people who are signed on to CCA can actually pick mentors that they want to work with, and we have a program that will help them and coach them to be better salespeople. So over and above, the sales 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we also have mentoring and coaching.
Can you imagine? First of all, let me say that you wonder why Alice is speaking about CCA and she seems to fully have an... So we need to introduce her in her capacity as an advisory board member for Commercial Club of Africa. So she's very biased, I have to say, in a nice way. She also chairs. So one of the things we have at CCA is a network of women in sales. We call it News, which is a network, a community of women who are in sales, right? I think the clue was in the name. And Alice is a chair. The chair lady. I wanted to call you chairman. It's probably not probably a bad idea.
It's most appropriate. But, yeah.
So she's a chair lady of Network of Women in Sales. She also sits in Kenya School of Sales as a trainer of trainers. So utilizing her experience to teach trainers to train sales, right? And so I'm very lucky to have Alice as part of the ecosystem. And really, to your point of giving back to society, what we need to do is to create that platform where more Alices can come on and give back to society in a way that's not donate, in a way that is useful, that utilizes your skills correctly.
Okay, I think that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it as a way of like structuring and kind of like leading up to a framework that kind of like has a structured sales profession.
Yeah.
Something akin to what marketers have, lawyers have,
Correct.
even HR professionals.
Yes.
But looking at the setup where we are as a country and looking at how everything is, it's a growing, Kenya is one of the fastest growing economies on this side of the world.
Yeah,
and
it is. It doesn't feel like it.
Yes, unfortunately.
When you're sitting in it, but it
unfortunately.
is, yeah.
But are we risking a place where we are trying to already, people look at sales as a very free-spirited profession and conversation. So are we risking kind of like, because I'm guessing somewhere along the roadmap is a conversation on regulating the sector, kind of having stop gaps, certifications, and having people who are already certified to be salespeople. But are we risking just killing even the creativity of the profession? Are we going to be running into a risk of over-regulating a profession that in its own history?
that has done very well
Yes.
on its
Despite.
Yes.
on
Despite.
itself,
And
despite.
has produced some of the
Yeah,
greatest
has produced some of the best
professionals.
salespeople in the country.
I think the creativity and the innovation is still part of the role, right? That will not change. Fundamentally, as a salesperson, you will still be expected to come up with, strategies that will help you win in the marketplace, which involves a lot of creativity and innovation on the salesperson. So that element will never be taken away, okay? What we are trying to do here is, one, create a framework. I think, that's the key word. It's create a framework of movement in the career. Okay. So if I'm moving from, typically as a salesperson, probably I'll start off as a TSM, maybe. Or even
What's
even a
TSM?
merchandiser.
Territory sales manager.
Territory sales manager, merchandiser.
Yeah.
Then I move on to an ASM. Then I move on probably to a regional sales manager. Then I move on probably to a sales director, and so on and so forth. It's just creating that framework of movement, yeah? And just understanding that there are certain capabilities that I have to build over and above the creativity and the innovation. There are certain capability profiles and skill sets that I have to build for me to transition from one position to another. And it's this framework that we want to build, okay, through the Kenya School of Sales. But I think let's also look at the bigger picture. The commercial CCA will be also, one, a point of networking. Okay, so I'll meet similar minded people at whatever category of my journey. I will meet similar minded people in here, similar to MSK. Okay, so I'll meet my like-minded people here. I'll also be able to explore opportunities that are out there, because I will be meeting people who I will discuss, hey, I have this opportunity for you, I have this opportunity for you. 3, we also have in between, let me say, ad hoc events. Ad hoc, I mean, a good example is you just recently had a route to market
a route to consumer summit, yeah.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
And very, from the feedback that I got, unfortunately I didn't attend, but from the feedback I got is that it was very educative. So then there's also the education component. So let's separate my creativity and my innovation. That will always remain. But then I have a framework of learning, and I have a framework of building my capability, and I have a framework of meeting like-minded people. And then I also have a framework to be mentored and to be coached. So these are the structures that we're trying to bring in. I wouldn't call it regulatory, because regulatory gives it that hard
Government,
component of
serikali, taxes, KRA.
putting things in. No, it's not really regularizing, but it's providing this framework that will help me grow my career.
Let me talk about regulation for a minute, though, which is everything that Alice has spoken about is spot on, right?
Yeah.
You want to be creative within a framework, right? Which then effectively makes sure that your creativity is exponential, and your creativity is scaled up the impact of your creativity is scaled up in a way that makes sense, right? Which is really what CCA is about. But I guess your question on regulation is relevant, right? Because the biggest question has always been, if you went to a hospital and the doctor told you, by the way, I've done this for 15 years, but I do not have a license, would you still stay? If you're on the operating table and the doctor told you, by the way, don't worry, I've done this for 12 years. I did not go to any... I got this. I really did not go to any professional institution. I've just done this for 12. I've done this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing, right? Your level of trust and belief would dramatically reduce, right? Yet, we allow people to sell as multi-million-dollar and Kenya shilling products, right? And it could be products or services, right? From quote-unquote, people that the only thing they're bringing to the table is their word, that they know what they're doing, right? And I do think that there is value in trying to structure that. And I'm not saying regulate, I'm saying structure it, right? Because I know we are completely overregulated as a country. There is so much regulation. There is a bit too much regulation, right? But so the intention is for CCA, we're not trying to be a regulator. We do not have the capacity or bandwidth to regulate the profession. What we want to be is you want to be a supporter, a structured framework that supports salespeople to be the best versions of themselves. So that the day the regulation conversation happens, and it will happen, as everything that is bound to happen will happen, right? Someone is going to pick up regulation. And we want, by the time they pick it up, we want to have built the structures and the frameworks. We want to have a school that people then, if people then ask, what is your licensing as a salesperson? You say, I have a Kenya School of Sales certificate, right? When people say, what is the relevance of the 12 years or 15 or 20 years that you've done in sales, you're then able to back that up with proof because you have these organizations that, you sort of have been tracking your milestones on. And the last thing, let me just talk about something called CPDs, Continuous Professional Development Points, right? Or a CPD framework, right? Which it exists for every other profession, right? Today, for you to be, Kiran, you're a lawyer, right? Or you studied law, maybe.
I'm a lawyer and a marketer.
There's
I'm a lawyer and
Very
a
interesting.
marketer.
Can you imagine did 2 degrees at the same time, right? So studied marketing and law. Unbelievable.
He just now needs to add sales.
Yeah, he just now needs to add sales, right? You just need to come to Kenya School of Sales and we spruce you up a bit and you're up and running.
I'm more of a policy guy. What I understand is, I'm more of a policy guy.
So you're a lawyer, right? Or, so which effectively means that for you to hold on to your license, there is a few things you have to do for your license to be up to date every year. You have to attend these X number of events and go through this amount of training, and you have to document all of that.
CPD points,
And CPD points as a key component of you keeping your license, correct? You have salespeople that have been doing sales for the last 100 years, right? And I say 100 years just to exaggerate, to make a point, right? But if you ask them, what do you have to show for it? Apart from the fact that you've worked for Beiersdorf for the last 15, 20 years, right? There's no real external document that you can show. And it's a bit saddening. You have all this experience and you have, apart from your CV and your LinkedIn profile saying you've been in sales for 15 years, you have nothing else to show for it, right? That's not fair on all the experience that you have had and all the work that you've put in, right?
Correct.
So we want to be able to give you the credibility that you deserve as a salesperson, right? And that's not regulation. That's just structuring and supporting you so that
framework.
if a job shows up in London,
I'll be able to pull out a paper
you'll
and say,
show exactly.
have you heard of this school? This is the certification that I've done.
Yeah, and by the way, you can follow my CPD points. You can follow my CPD history for the last 10 years. And these are all the things I've done. Right? Today, you go to a conference, no one knows that you went to a conference. But if a lawyer goes to a conference, that's going to go on to record into their profile, right? So just that thinking is what we are looking. So I know you have a question about is all of this going to gut the profession? I think it's, and as I said, I think I want to be put on record that we are not trying to regulate the sales organization. We're trying to structure it correctly so that the day regulation happens, we will be ready for it.
Yeah. So I'm also looking at a situation where we have a lot of maybe similar bodies working on an international scope.
Yeah.
And are we going to take that kind of like maybe structuring moving forward? How are we drawing from external partners who have already set up that space before looking at the UK and the other foreign markets? Are we copy pasting? What are we doing to make it more relevant to the market? How are we fixing? Because I'm also looking at a situation where, how are we fixing that? But how are we making it more streamlined?
That's a lovely question. Are we copy pasting? No. Are we repurposing and learning from other organizations? Yes. I'll give you 2 quick examples. The US has CCA's equivalent in the US is called National Sales Network, which is run by a lovely gentleman called David Richardson. And David Richardson and I, we sort of have a mentor-mentee relationship. He actually has a conference in August, and we are thinking, can we be represented at CCA, etc. And what we're doing with NSN, for example, is we have actually taken their bylaws, we've taken their structure. They have been in existence for 35 years. And so they have lots of experience. They do this big conference every year that brings 3,000 salespeople together. They work with 100, organizations like Beiersdorf. And effectively, it would be sad for us to take all of that experience and not learn from it. So we are drawing up a CCA constitution, and within that constitution, we are thinking, how do we then take, stuff like NSN and, how do we plug that into? Not all of it. We are not going to take copy-paste the constitution, but we'll take the good stuff and we'll, utilize it on this end. So that's one example. Second example is the UK has an organization called ISP, Institute of Sales Professionals. Again, very similar to what we do for CCA in Kenya. The difference, though, is that there are certifying bodies. So what they do is that they certify sales training organizations, right? What we do not tell you is that KSS is certified by ISP. So as a matter of fact, when you do Kenya School of Sales, you don't get a KSS certificate, you get an ISP certificate. Think of, ACCA, right?
ACCA.
How you do ACCA, and then you could do it in Strathmore in KCA, but you don't get a KCA certificate, you get an ACCA certificate, and you could practice accounting anywhere in the world. That is exactly the same thinking we are bringing to the sales profession, because we want to globalize it in a way that makes sense. And so, so we are learning as much as possible. And I cannot tell you the amount of rigor that ASP is putting, for example, and helping us think through our curriculum as an example. So we develop a world-class curriculum. They have to assess our trainers as well. So we develop a world-class training system as well, etc.
Right. So I think that's a beautiful conversation. I think maybe for me, what I'm thinking about is just the kind of it's like the structured framework. I think also there's what we cannot ignore is the hand of government in anything that seems to kind of shape up our profession. The policies around it, the framework even for salespeople. Moving forward, considering they make most of the workforce in the country. So I think maybe it's an ongoing conversation we can have on how we're rethinking around that, while still making sure that we are giving something that is palatable to every stakeholder involved.
Yes.
You make a good point on palatability of policy, right?
Yeah.
And I think the advantage we have is that we have the advantage of shaping that narrative as CCA and as salespeople today, right? Because the conversation has not happened. So it's a proactive approach to policy as opposed to as a reactive approach to policy, where you get given a policy document and you have to comply
to adopt
to it, right? So what we want to do is we obviously want to, we are maybe 2-3 years ahead of that conversation, where we are then, setting up the system structures, frameworks, having the conversations. So the day we then have to write a policy paper on regulating the sales profession, we will be right at the forefront with a full-on voice, with actual examples of what works, what doesn't work, how do we build it in a way that is useful, that actually structures salespeople correctly, right? And a good example is this whole conversation on ethics, right? Someone has been sold something that was wrong by an unscrupulous salesperson somewhere in the world, right? The reason why that happens is because people are allowed to run wild and consider themselves salespeople without any form of guardrails and regulation around who is a salesperson, who is not, right? It would be good for salespeople who are good salespeople doing the right things to have that level of support simply, right? So not all regulation is bad, but it needs to be done from the right point of view.
So I think maybe it's something you can also have an ongoing conversation on the future. The future, what we see moving forward. Just answer the last question. What are we hoping for? What are we seeing moving forward for the profession, the ever evolving
I think
landscape?
I mean, I might be a bit biased, but I think sales is now and in the future will be a career of choice. Yeah, because we were having a very interesting conversation with Kelvin about, is AI, for example, going to sweep out salespeople? And we both agreed, let me put it that way. We both agreed that salespeople are here to stay. Even AI needs salespeople at the end of the day, because it's going to make us better salespeople. It's going to, be it about generating leads, be it about creating better sales forecasting tools, be it about creating better Salesforce automation tools. Everything that is going to happen in the future that is being, for example, impacted by AI is actually going to add more credibility, and give us more time to be strategic and help us function more on strategy, probably less on execution. I won't have to spend 10 hours on data analysis, for example, but I'll have to spend more time face-to-face talking to my customer. Spending more time building relationships, spending more time on the human element of sales, and, let everything else be taken care of. So sales, at the end of the day, is actually one of the careers that the future is ready for and the future needs. And salespeople are here to stay. But then again, it's up to salespeople to go along with what is relevant for them, what is trending out there, and they need to learn now, right? They need to up their game in terms of their capability. They need to come to Kenya School of Sales to get that capability right up there. They need to spend time to grow themselves if they're going to be future fit and purpose fit. Yeah. Again, also, if I look at where the sales element is going. So previously, we were focusing a lot on brick and mortar. We were selling in shops. We had supermarkets. We were walking into supermarkets and picking off the shelf. But then now we have emerging ways of selling. E-com is coming up quite fast. Quick commerce is coming up quite fast. Buyers are looking for value, and they're looking for value fast. Now, they want convenience. So how fast can we deliver to customers? How fast can we sell to them? How do I communicate value in that 5 minutes that I have probably on social media, for example? We as salespeople also have to have this mindset. The old type of selling where was long drawn, I had 15 days, I had 30 days in my pipeline to make a sale, that is not going to happen anymore. So we also have to have that evolving mind to understand what does the consumer need, and then mirror it with what I'm doing as a salesperson. We also have to look at our marketing skills. I think many times as salespeople, we want to separate ourselves from the marketing element of our jobs, but a lot of sales is also focused a lot on our ability to market. Yeah, because you have a 5 minutes shot, 2 minutes shot with a customer. You have to both market and sell and close the deal and provide after sale services in a very short window. So we need to broaden our ability to understand. Finally, one thing that I do know, and you can see it, is that many salespeople, or rather, it's easier as a salesperson to ascend into a GM role or an MD role. And this is something salespeople have to be very clear about. It is extremely easy for a salesperson to end up as an MD or as a GM. And why is that? I'll go back to what I'd said at the beginning. You know the business end to end. You know how it was made. You know how it got on the shelf. You know how it was sold. You know how the pricing was done. You know what competition is doing. You know what the consumer is getting in terms of value from the product. Salespeople have to have that hunger. They have to have that hunger. They have to want to learn everything about this product. From the day it was created and it was a thought in someone's mind, to the day it was packaged, to how it was packaged, to everything in between, sustainability, eco, whatever, all those things we think about, to the pricing and to the final customer. If they look at it from this lens that I'm the custodian of information from the beginning to the end,
100%.
the future is bright, because
future
then
is
you know the
unbelievable.
product end to end, right?
Okay.
So I think for me, my final word to salespeople is understand your product end to end, move fast. Move with speed, move with knowledge.
Okay. Yes. That's beautiful.
It's difficult to beat that, right? It's very difficult to beat that. But so what's the question? What's final words, etc. Right? What's the future of sales? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let me talk about AI
As a
shortly.
profession, yes.
Because it would be doing this podcast a big disservice if we leave this set without talking about artificial intelligence and its impact on sales, right? I am now I'm an AI evangelist, by the way. I'm a big believer in productivity that AI can provide, of course, with the right guardrails. And I think this at the heart of artificial intelligence is the thought and the thinking and the understanding that AI is not going to take our jobs. I think we are all, I hope we're all clear. But if you're not, I don't think AI will take our jobs. People that are using AI will take our jobs, right? So you'll not have all of a sudden robots on the streets selling Nivea and Blue Band, etc., right? Where you may, but it's a long time out. It's a long time out. Yeah. What you will have, though, is you will have people on their desks and on their computers, on their laptops and their gadgets utilizing artificial intelligence in a way that enables them to be super salespeople. I give you 2 examples. Today, even at CCA, we're already using AI lead management systems, right? So Kenya School of Sales, how we are talking to people is that we are not cold calling 100 people. We don't have a list of 1,000 people we are calling, right? We have an artificial intelligence system on the back end that targets profiles of people that we think could come into level 6 and level 5 and whatever level. and we are then hyper-targeting them on their social media platforms, right? Which effectively means that my sales team on the back end is not actually cold calling. They sit in meetings with meetings that have been booked by an AI system. So what does that mean? That the salesperson now no longer has to be a cold call specialist because that AI can do. Then my salesperson actually has to be a relationship expert, somebody who is able to get into a call and have the difficult, lovely conversation of getting you over the line.
The human interface.
The human interface, right? Now, what does that mean? That if you're using AI correctly as a salesperson, right, what you've done is that you have found a way of 10xing your productivity. So you could have 10 meetings in a day and close 9, right? As opposed to you having 1,000 calls in a day and 2 people picking up so you can have meetings next week, right?
Okay.
So you have, so imagine then that salesperson is using AI competing with another salesperson who still has a notebook with a list of phone numbers, sitting at a coffee shop making phone calls, right?
Yeah.
You're in 2 different worlds, right?
Going through LinkedIn profiles.
Going through LinkedIn profiles,
Manually.
trying
Yeah.
to, my God, we will kick your ass 1,000 times to 1. Right? And therefore, what do I think? I think it is important for us to be clear on what tools exist, and it is not, ignorance is not
Bliss.
is not bliss in this case, and it's not defense, right? Because all these tools, the internet is free. Well, it's not free, but the internet exists to all of us, right? So go and learn what tools exist. And if you don't know where to learn, then come and ask us. We will help you, right? I think that's the first point as a salesperson, which is the knowledge piece that Alice is talking to. But the second piece is also for organizations to realize and people to realize that AI is going to the ideal world is for AI to do that repetitive, manual, quote unquote boring work that none of us wants to do. Filing, record keeping, data crunching, right? You don't to sit on 10 hours on an Excel file. You want, if a system can do that for me and give me the insight that allows me to make a decision, that really is why I was doing it in the first place, right? So all of these manual, repetitive tasks, let the system do, let technology do, because the technology will do it 1,000 times better. But the human stuff, they're sitting in a coffee shop with Alice, who's a commercial director for Beiersdorf, and having a conversation about how are you doing and how can we further the sales department or the sales profession. That is what I should be doing, right? Okay. And effectively means that if that is taken care of, then I can do more of this. I can have 10 of these conversations a day, right? I can have 100 of these conversations a month. I am 10xing my productivity by doing that. I could go on and on, right?
Yeah.
But I think the lesson here is please let's upskill ourselves. It's not okay to say that we do not know about it, then go find out or ask the question. And then that point is, as organizations, let us start building the structures and systems within corporate organizations to tap into the benefits of AI, right? Because one of the biggest challenges we are seeing today is that there's lots of organizations that don't even know where to start, right? And again, that's not okay.
Okay.
As leaders in organizations, we owe it to ourselves and to our organizations to go and learn what is there and to start experimenting with some of these tools, because we cannot wish this technology away. It's not going anywhere, right? We are where we were. I was listening to last story. I was listening to somebody was saying in the there's a nice, beautiful photo of a New York picture of one photo as like 30 years apart. In 1900, there were horses. On how mobility was carriages on horses, right?
Yeah.
30 years later, there were Ford vehicles all over, right? And someone was saying, if you had asked the horses in 1900, what do you think is going to change in your life? Horses would have been like, we are going to continue living a blissful existence because we have ferried human beings for the last 1,000 years, right? And if you had asked human beings what's going on with your mobility, they would have been like, yeah, we just need stronger horses.
Faster
horses, right? But then someone went and said, they did not ask the question to the horses or the humans. They went and built a technology and showed it to the humans, and the humans were like, oh my God, we can move at 100 kilometers an hour. I don't think it was 100 then, it was about 20 or 30. It was still faster than the horse. Yeah, and did not require grass and did not get tired and did not get sick, etc. Right? This is a horse and vehicle transition we are going through, right? And whether you like it or not, the vehicles will take over. Okay. And it is your job to know how to drive. Okay. In a language we will all understand. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I've just thought about something. Maybe I should mention it. And I was just thinking of non-sales people who are selling. So thinking of people who are providing services, doctors, engineers. If you look at the future, all these careers are going to have more supply, right? So there'll be more doctors, there'll be more lawyers. Probably their technical skills will probably be at the same level. How does one stand out more than the other? It'll be in their sales capability. It'll be in their ability to market their service or their product or their profession better. So when we talk about the sales future, let's also look at non-sales people selling their services. They'll need to get more savvy. I will, if for example, I'm looking for the best dermatologist, I will actually look at the one who's selling their services better to me. So that person will need to have the sales capability, because I'm assuming at a technical level,
They're all the same.
probably they have the same certification.
Yeah.
So the future of sales is just not about salespeople and people in the sales profession. It's also about non-sales people who are selling services, and they'll need to up their game in sales too.
Okay.
It's value exchange,
Yeah.
irrespective of profession. Right? So it's industry agnostic. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in, and it's profession agnostic. So it doesn't matter what profession you're in. If you think about presidents and the work that they do, right, they are out there every day selling something, themselves, the country, some policy, etc. And therefore, I think there is the understand. I think once people understand that sales is a way of life, and that it's a skill you can learn, and it's a skill that you can harness, I think we'll have a better
It's a
economy.
skill you must learn.
It's a skill you must learn.
Yeah,
It's a skill you must learn. And then I think economically we get better economies, because imagine if everybody is selling better and thinking about the value they're providing, right, at a macroeconomic level, then you have a much better economic development, in my view.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. So I think that's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And even just moving forward, even just maybe even a challenge to our audience on changing the psychology and moving forward.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you for coming on board. Thank you so much for this beautiful and enriching conversation that we've had.
Yeah. Do we get parting shots? Or those were parting shots? Those were parting shots. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank you very much, Kiran, for having us. I think it's a timely conversation, and thank you for allowing us to use your platform to broadcast the opportunities that are in the sales profession.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great having us here, and a good provocation to the salespeople. I'll repeat it: invest time in yourself, build your knowledge base. Sales is the career for the future, for now and for the future.
So thank you so much. Let's continue to just keep abreast of the conversation that we're having, hoping that we'll have this conversation again. We are years ahead of time. So to our audience, keep it Vellum.